Hello dear viewers, here is a new video that I will please you on my channel Manhwa Compilation. I hope you like my story and how I told it to you. One day, doors opened all over the world and through them, countless monsters from another dimension invaded the earth, causing a massive disaster. However, along with them, beings who could suppress them with pure power emerged. These beings were called saints and began to get involved in this world, safeguarding its inhabitants. Using their powers, they subdued a large part of the monsters. Since that day, even ordinary people started showing potential to become a saint, gaining a lifespan comparable to that of the monsters. This marked the beginning of a world where anyone could wield immense power. The source of this power was determined by the potential one had to become a saint and could be classified into three categories. Firstly, there was the celestial physique, which allowed its user to manipulate the sky and the earth. The second one allowed its owners to control the five elements: fire, water, earth, wood, and metal, and was known as the mundane physique. The third one enabled its user to manipulate the energy of the sun and the moon, yin and yang, and was known as the human physique. Lastly, there was a physique that did not fit into any of the three categories. It was far beyond the comprehension of others. This physique allowed its users to demonstrate immense power and superhuman abilities. It was neither celestial nor mundane. Instead, it was a disaster that could not be categorized along with the others. The beings possessing it were considered chaos itself. In this world where the saints were at the forefront and were even regarded as rulers, a person appeared who shocked everyone with the enormous potential of their irregular physique. With abilities that allowed them to consume chemical products and unleash their potential, this disaster wielded the power of an irregular Hanjul. They used their powers to challenge the system and subdue the saints who had become intoxicated with power. The story begins with Hanjul working while some of their colleagues feel tired due to the exhausting work. They bid farewell to them, and as they walk, their colleagues talk about how energetic Hanjul is at work, never getting tired. They wonder if Hanjul has some kind of invigorating medicine, as they have seen them eating vitamins and can't fathom how they could attain so much power. On the other hand, Hanjul strolls through the streets calmly, thinking to themselves that the vitamins they have consumed are the best for fatigue, as by enhancing their effects through devouring them, they can maximize their potential. They discovered the power of their special attribute during their days in the military when they consumed some supplements given to them by a comrade. Since then, even after a hard day's work, their fatigue disappears, and the supplements grant them a clear mind. As Hanjul walks through the streets, a girl approaches them. Seeing her, Hanjul feels glad, but it turns out she belongs to a cult, which Hanjul doesn't like. So they run away. While doing so, they recall their father, who used to be a stable person but decided one day to create a medicine to become a saint. After leaving those words as their legacy, the father resigned from their job and moved to their parents' house in the countryside. They consumed a mixture of medicines and other ingredients, which led them to be hospitalized several times until they passed away one day, and the medicine never worked. This happened 20 years ago, when Hanjul was just 2 years old. We return to the present, and Hanjul does some shopping while still thinking about their father. Suddenly, a large circle appears in the sky, surprising people, and they take photos, but Hanjul can only think that it must be something dangerous. A massive earthquake shakes the earth, and everyone tries to seek shelter, but the monsters won't allow it. Hanjul feels helpless at that moment, but their ability activates, using nutrients from caffeine and sugar to gain great power, increasing their reflexes. They manage to dodge a monster's attack, but don't fully understand what is happening. After pondering a bit, they realize they might have absorbed the properties of the coffee. Although they contemplate fleeing, witnessing people being slaughtered, Hanjul decides to confront the monsters, and the battle begins. Just when they are about to defeat them, the true boss makes an appearance, revealing a monstrous appearance. Hanjul manages to intimidate it, but the orc boss is imposing. One of the survivors asks for Hanjul's help, who consumes a cigarette, granting them enormous dexterity, and with just one kick they send the boss outside the store. As they walk around smoking their cigarette, the adrenaline creation activates, and the second round starts. Even though Hanjul is losing the effect of the caffeine, they endure the boss's blow. Unfortunately, they crash into a supermarket, destroying everything. The orc boss appears, displaying its imposing presence. Meanwhile, people around them try to escape at all costs from the disaster, but the monsters won't let them. This fact makes Hanjul feel powerless as they don't have enough energy to continue fighting. To suddenly fight, a person descends from the heavens and, using a talisman, manages to subdue the monsters, generating a massive explosion of energy that disintegrates them instantly. This event surprises Hanjul. The girl approaches him and admires that he managed to kill some monsters without any training. She asks him who he is. He tells her that she will have to measure his potential. She takes his hand and, using her power, registers him. Upon doing this, she notices that he is neither celestial nor mundane, but he doesn't seem to be human either. He must be an irregular. She thinks to herself that even though the person in front of her may have been chosen, she cannot allow someone with such power to live because it could lead to disaster. As she is about to kill him, he thanks her for the help. After thinking for a while, she uses a pill that causes him terrible pain and tells him it is a medicine to seal his internal energy. She is doing this to save his life since an irregular cannot wander the world as if nothing happened. Moreover, his own powers could ruin his life, so it would be better for him to remain that way. She asks him not to hate her for this decision and departs, saying that if fate wills it, they will meet again. As she leaves, he says he doesn't know what an irregular is and what that has to do with him. He tries to get up slowly and step by step walks to the pharmacy, saying that if he didn't have his powers, he would probably be dead. That's why he will use them to survive. Back home, he consumes a large amount of hangover drinks, allowing him to return to his previous state and neutralize the effects of the pill, saving himself from living a miserable life. A warning arrives on his cell phone. The monsters are attacking the city. After seeing the message, he downloads an app that alerts him about everything that will happen within his area. Upon registering, a menu appears that scans his physical condition. He starts trembling, and the scanning completes. By some twist of fate, he is not classified as an irregular. The blue energy of the void, a material that represents trees and sometimes contains water within its core, is considered one of the best medicines in the world. The test results are about to be shown. This blue energy of the void is one of the ingredients of the pill he took, allowing him to absorb its power. As the hangover drinks counteracted the poison, he could absorb it safely. Something begins to emerge inside his body, and energy is causing him a high fever. He searches for a comfortable way to control it. Afterward, he checks his cell phone, and his physical condition is displayed. He possesses a mundane physique. Upon careful consideration, he concludes that perhaps it was the effects of the pill that allowed him to obtain this classification. It's a relief that he was not classified as an irregular, as he might have died. A message from the president appears, stating that he will speak the truth for everyone's safety. 10,000 years ago, the world was a spectacular place where monsters roamed and ruled the earth. Even beings from other dimensions came to their world. At that time, humans were nothing more than sacrifices. But amidst the chaos, the chosen ones with spiritual physiques appeared, possessing a power not everyone had, bringing glory to the world. The saints sacrificed themselves to close the gates of heaven, allowing all humans to prosper. They were remembered as myths and legends, passed down through generations, and continue to protect the gate as humanity progresses. This was the case until now. Another window appears, and Janjun searches for skills suitable for his attitudes. Multiple signs appear to initiate. He must locate power in 3 core zones: upper core, middle core, and lower core. After getting into the proper position, he must practice in an organized way to feel the heat in those areas. Once power concentrates in those 3 points, he will have the foundation for his training. After this, he begins, saying that it is quite easy, and even though a spiritual body takes time to feel energy in its 3 points, some people with talent only take months or a few years to reach a state of enlightenment. Hanju has taken the first step to becoming a saint. Upon waking up, he notices that a long time has passed, as plants have grown around him. By checking the message on the screen, he confirms that 100 days have passed. After this, he takes a bath, and while drying himself, he examines his body, and is surprised to find no wounds. What's even more strange is that he doesn't feel hungry. He has lost weight and gained muscle. He looks at his cell phone and realizes the situation he is in. When he looks outside, he sees a massive barrier. It seems to be a dome isolating the city from the outside. They are often used when there are monsters in many places, so it's possible that he was left behind because he couldn't evacuate. Suddenly he feels an earthquake, but when he looks out the window, he sees the true reality. Monsters are approaching in large numbers, so he is about to leave that place. He tries to enter the application to see what is happening. Apparently, he slept for 100 days because the technique he used with the lotus position is special. The menu opens, but without internet, he cannot access it. Although he can see his information and the skills he was granted, one of them is called Windy Steps, which allows him to move at an enormous speed by concentrating magic in his feet. The others are called Carrying the Weight, which increases his strength, and Twisted Light, but he cannot use them at the moment since monsters are on the roof and they could see him and be attracted to him. Apparently, to level up, he must acquire stars. The more experience he gains, the better it will be for his skills to increase. But what's most surprising is that it takes 10 years per star. This fact makes him sad, since he must practice almost his entire life just to become stronger. At this rate, it would take him a long time. He starts checking how many stars he has at the moment, but in doing so, he attracts a monster, so he looks for a way to confront it. The monster doesn't give him time and attacks him, but he uses the skill he found before, enchantment planting sprouts. This allows him to absorb the enemy's life force and use all the nutrients they had, greatly increasing his power. After meditating for a while, he realizes that a tremendous amount of power is entering his body, and this may lead to a rapid increase in his strength. Upon inspecting the monster closely, he notices some special sprouts on its body and keeps them since they seem to be unique. He gathers some things and walks through the hallway, saying that he can only use his absorption ability once on his enemies, but it is very convenient, since if given time, he could kill them. Although it's not a great method to face multiple opponents, it will serve him well in a one-on-one battle. As he has to wait for the rescue team to return, he must use his abilities to stay safe. Suddenly, a massive beast jumps and tries to attack him, but he manages to stop it using an energy coating, and with a powerful punch makes it retreat. He attempts to escape, but it won't be that easy if he wants to survive. He'll have to fight. He reaches the rooftop and uses his third ability, Twisted Light, to emit a very bright energy and hide while waiting for the rescue team. Apparently, a Taoist is in the area. The Taoist asks why he's in a place like this without any talismans or the ability to fly. To this, Hanjul responds that he had them, but they vanished. The Taoist tells him to take his hand to get out of there, but Hanjul says there is a huge beast behind him. Without much effort, using his fire pearls, the Taoist kills the beast and tells Hanjul that it's time to leave. While they head to a safe zone, the Taoist asks who he is to be in a forbidden area and if he doesn't value his life. Hanyu thanks him for saving him and explains that he has been trapped for 100 days. Checking his phone, he notices that his mother and relatives are okay, and he's happy about that, but many things have changed, and he wonders how strong he must become now. They arrive at a building, and he talks to his family, telling them he was lost for a while, but they manage to rescue him. Since they have to investigate, he'll talk to them later. Not far from there, the guard in the room asks if he finished his call. He responds that he did, thinking that it's good that his family is safe. Someone enters the room. It's one of the disciples who follows the orders of the unit they are in. He asks the guard to leave and intimidates him to comply with his orders. Now alone with Hanjul, he asks if he reached the Ascendance rank before the Heavenly Gate opened. Hanjul says he did not. Chayo 9 angrily tells him that he thinks he's worthy of waking his master, and explains that there are 9 ranks. Saint's Ascendance, First Rank, and the others stem from that. High Second Rank, Great Third Rank Mystic, 4th Rank Celestial, 5th Rank Glorious, 6th Rank Deity, 7th Rank Spiritual, 8th Rank Mundane, and the Maximum Rank. Most disciples are not considered saints, but he was recognized by his characteristics as an ascended first rank. Age, ethnicity, none of that matters. Whoever accumulates the most training as a disciple and becomes the strongest will rule, but they have to give everything to serve their seniors, as that is the established rule. Hanjul asks about his master's rank. Chayone grabs him by the neck and tells him that those born with a spiritual physique must live under the care of their ancestors, as there is no possibility. If he says that again, he'll have trouble. Anyu reproaches him for following him just because he thinks he has a cool way of speaking. Chayone is about to hit him, but stops when he sees his status window, as Hanjul seems to be one rank above him. Hanjul tells him that since he has to help his seniors, he'll have to give his all from now on. The scene changes, and now we see the Taoist talking to his disciple. He scolds him for everything he's been telling him, and even more so for bowing his head in front of a brat like that Chayo without even asking for an apology. He tells him that his rank was lower than that of his enemy, so it's possible he's an irregular. The angry Taoist tells him to stop talking nonsense, as he should have been born with a mundane body, but his nature is more inclined towards trees. The disciple asks if that has to do with his cultivation speed, to which the Taoist responds that he doesn't know. Previously, it was difficult for a human to possess that power. Humans faced elements, water, and fire. Although these elements are common, the relationship between a tree and a human is relatively incompatible. The Taoist says that the report of help is a rare case, so he shouldn't say anything and gives him a pill to stabilize his power, while thinking to himself that it's fascinating that such a young boy possesses such power. Elsewhere in the Hanju building, Hanjul investigates his physique. According to the government, there is no person with an irregular physique, and physical evaluations are conducted all over the country. Anyone with an irregular physique is isolated. Although there are 3 types of established physiques, an unpredictable type can also appear. In previous decades, the saints were disappearing, and the monsters tried to interfere with the world. To prevent this, the saints banished them along with the irregulars, leaving behind multiple stories of their exploits. Among them are the stories of John Hilton and Jim Bochi, who were famous irregulars. It is assumed that Hanjul was classified as mundane due to his power, and as long as they don't know how long the chemical power of substances lasts, it's okay. Hanjul searches for substances with a similar effect to the pill he took. After searching a bit, he finds the seeds he collected previously after fighting a beast in the department, but apparently there are no photos of them sprouting. After further investigation, he learns that it's called the purgatory grass, a herb that grows naturally in the river Styx. If the seeds are consumed raw, they make a person feel sick, but just after sprouting, they are considered medicine possessing yin energy. The conditions for their germination are quite strict, making them extremely difficult to obtain in that state. But Hanjul is lucky as the seeds he has sprouted due to his powers. So, he sets out to experiment with those that didn't sprout, using the technique of breathing in the sunlight winds. He manages to make them sprout and excitedly goes to look for his disciple, but he is in another place outside the Hanju building. He reaches a distant site and, using his power, manages to grow a tree. Although he had to sacrifice 2 hours of his time, he closely examines it while thinking to himself that the breathing technique can exchange energy with everything around it, giving him the power to make plants grow. At this rate, if he continues like this, he won't have problems living as an irregular. By consuming the sprouts of the purgatory grass, a large amount of energy enters his body. The heat it generates is similar to the vacuum technique, and absorption takes place, albeit with a few issues. He doesn't know the reason for this, but after trial and error, he finds a way to channel the power in a way that benefits him greatly. Looking back on his memories, he realizes that these seeds possess yin power, as the absorption method is similar to that of the tree. But he can't find a technique that uses yang power, as mixing them may put him in danger, as it did before. We return to the moment when his little experiment was successful. He plucks a message from his cell phone, alerting him of a level 2 disaster. The king dragon of the West Sea is loose, and people run to seek refuge. Hanjul follows closely outside the building. Something is lurking. Worms are scattered everywhere. Hanjul thinks to himself that this is something strange. A person screams for help, and behind her is the king dragon of the sea, a monstrous winged beast of massive size. He stares at it intently while the girl is tortured and pleads for help. The people around only care about themselves, but Hanjul is not like them. With a cigarette and the tree in hand, he unleashes his power to the fullest and launches into battle. He won't let a person die like this, so he will destroy the beast. He slams it against a wall, but he doesn't understand how he has become so strong. He remembers the purgatory grass he had used before and thinks that it might be the cause of his power. But after analyzing the situation, he notices that it's the rain that's falling, and it's connected to the tears of the king dragon of the sea. With this, he gains a new power called chemicals. Of the dragon, this water is favorable for him because, just like it makes trees grow and become stronger, it amplifies his wood element energy. With this new ability, he refines an artifact by concentrating an enormous amount of power into the tree and manages to create the dragon-slaying exorcist sword. Armed with it, he prepares to confront the beast, which is not willing to back down. Jam takes a defensive position and counters its attacks, but the battle is far from easy, and the barrier he creates to stop the beast won't hold for long. Using a significant amount of his energy to withstand the attacks, he notices an opening and strikes back. After inspecting the sword, he sees that it remains unscathed, and it seems the Sea Dragon King has set his sights on it. In its final attempt to attack the girl, the Sea Dragon King is stopped by Hanjul, who knocks it back and rescues her. The Sea Dragon King is not willing to let this stand, and it roars fiercely, trying to use its claws to attack. Hanjul creates a shield, protects the girl, and tries to counter the attack, but he ends up crashing into a wall, barely able to move. Utilizing the sword and the fact that his bones are intact, he tries to get up. With the woman safe in the refuge, he can now focus on the battle. The Sea Dragon King takes flight, staring down at him, and he wonders how such a large beast can fly. But there's no time to ponder that. He can't retreat to the refuge as chemicals are running out, and he's getting weaker. He could use his ability to plant sprouts, but it's difficult against flying enemies. Thus he decides to go all out in the battle, using his ace in the hole, the dragon-slaying exorcist sword, which possesses both plant and sword attributes. However, this energy exchange takes time to grow strong enough. Using the falling dragon tears, he increases the technique's power, stores energy in the sword, and focuses on what's to come. Employing the martial art of lightning strikes from the sunlight winds, he aims to finish off the beast. The onlookers record the scene in awe of this magnificent being who defies the authorities and defeated a god's pet. Hanjul, even if someone were to die by the Sea Dragon King, the authorities wouldn't intervene. Nonetheless, without caring about all that, he saves the girl without hesitation, becoming a hero. Someone intervenes and appears angry, questioning if he knows what he has done, killing the young lady's bird. It is the fire Taoist who scolds Hanjul severely, saying that it's not enough for him to die. The Taoist takes him away, and the widely shared video causes people to condemn the Taoist's actions, putting a beast above human lives. On top of a large building, we see a lady who turns out to be Yunghwa. She asks her subordinate if the person who killed her pet is dead, and the subordinate says that the Taoist burned him, and that they have subdued him for now. However, Yunghwa is angry, saying that they are underestimating her and sends her subordinate to tell the humans that if they don't want to suffer her wrath, they must finish him off. But this won't be possible as Hanjul's recording has become quite popular, and if she were to show hostility towards him, various factions would be dissatisfied with her actions. Yunghwa finds it unfunny, mentioning that the rulers seem to fear such things. She asks her subordinate if she has found a way to calm her anger, and the subordinate says they have prepared a tribute to maintain her reputation, which satisfies Yunghwa. She notes that it might rain since the Sea Dragon King has calmed its sadness. The one who died wasn't the original Sea Dragon King, but a distant relative with qualifications even lower than an illegitimate son. According to her thoughts, the true one should be satisfied with the rain ritual. However, the most crucial thing at the moment is the object she obtained, a fruit called a fantastic treasure even among deities. Its flowers bloom only once every 1,000 years, and it takes at least 3,000 years for a fruit to grow. This is the mystical tree that grows solely in the Queen of the West's orchard, the tree of immortal peaches. After the Queen Mother of the West sacrificed herself to close the gates of heaven, they disappeared as well. If she could make them bloom again, her name would replace the Queen's. We shift the perspective, and now we see Hanjul walking the streets while recalling what he was told after awakening. Apparently, he made all the gods look like bad people. Even though his sword was confiscated, he found a wooden block in the beast that was apparently carrying him. Feeling life within it, he channeled his power, generating a small sapling, which he set out to care for no matter what. A year has passed since that incident, and new problems have arisen in the news. They talk about a nauseating smell spreading throughout the city and the contaminated water that the government is trying to purify. People complain about this problem, saying that the issue is not just purifying the water, but also dealing with what has been lurking in the Han River for a month. When the energy of the heavens was completely chaotic, a monster hid in the Han River. This monster was called the 1,000-year snake-headed fish. After crossing from the world of monsters to the human world's river, it became powerful enough to claim itself as a god, proclaiming to be the lord of the Han River. It declared that no one could use the water of his river until they fulfilled its demands. Here, two new characters are introduced. The first is Jeonjeo, a disciple of the mountain, one of the 8 sacred mountains of the Korean peninsula, and a disciple of the celestial king Nutra. The second character is Sinsomin, the youngest disciple of the 8 sacred mountains of the Korean peninsula, and a disciple of the immortal Taek, the guardian Paitu. It seems they are discussing the situation happening in the Han River. Jeonjeo says it is not appropriate to gather together as they cannot discuss or resolve this problem since it depends on the will of the gods. So, she should act as if everything is fine until mortals face serious problems and protest silently. She can't believe what she's hearing and asks if that's what her master taught her. Apparently, 10,000 citizens have contracted infectious diseases or suffered food poisoning, and that's why they have to solve the problem. Jeonjeo asks if she can kill the Lord of the Han River, but she doesn't respond. He mentions that just a few days ago, many people tried to defeat the monster, but 4 senior mystical immortals encountered problems with it, and apparently, the people in the room are not even at the level of those immortals. So, he asks if she wants them to work together diligently to move toward the mouth of that fish. Here, they comment on the real reason it is difficult to deal with an individual like the Lord of the Han River. He possesses techniques of earth and water, which is challenging to achieve even among humans. The only way they could defeat him is if an immortal with high proficiency in earth forces him out by force, or if someone of higher rank in both elements, like the tree, were to face him. We return to the present and see Hanjul running calmly through the forest. She tries to keep up using all her abilities, but it's not easy. She can't even catch up. Even if she uses a talisman, she can't believe what's happening. When he approaches and says he didn't mean to escape, he was just surprised that she followed him. She notices the sweat on his body, concluding that he must have relied on his physical strength. She throws her phone at him to measure his abilities, but what's even stranger is that he still possesses the same information as before, indicating he remains a high-grade immortal. She talks to him about the current situation, and Hanju asks if she intends to use her wood power to kill the Lord of the Han River. But for him, the most important thing is to know if the other immortals want to kill that monster. In his view, they seem negligent. She explains that the seniors didn't take action because they wanted to see if their juniors could handle the task without relying on them. However, from his perspective, he can only see how thousands of people are suffering because the seniors are waiting for the juniors to do the job. He asks if, with their cooperation, his sanction will be lifted, and they will compensate him. And she asks him like this: with cooperation, will your sanction be lifted, and will they compensate you? She asks for his sword since it seemed that she felt he had it. She asks him how he knows, and he tells her that he can interact with the trees around him, and that is part of his cultivation technique. So she asks if he can take her out of the curfew. She tells him that there is no problem because this is an important matter that will attract everyone's attention, and no one will judge him for helping. Besides, she thinks to herself that the curfew was only established to punish him for killing Miss Yungwa's bird, and as the incident is already forgotten, he probably won't have any problems resolving it, especially since she is the disciple of the immortal Taek. That's why she is trying to convince him no matter what. At the river, she and some people who seem to be the guards of the place talk about the monster, and she tells them that she is there to finish it. On the other hand, Hanjin carefully looks at the river and takes out some items from his bag that he prepared for the battle. These items seem to be water hyacinths, a plant for purifying the water. The Lord of the River, Hana, appears, and Hang is ready to hunt him. The Lord of the River, Yan, who calls himself a god, tells him he has to obey and create some whirlpools. He manages to dodge them, arrives in front of him, and using some of his skills, he attacks him with darts. The battle becomes increasingly intense, and the Lord of the River gets angry. Without sound, he can't believe how Hanju uses his abilities, but he says that he won't be able to win. However, Hanju proves otherwise. The Lord of the River, Han, believes he can see through all his tricks. He manages to hit him with his tail while falling. Hanju picks up his bag, and some seeds fall and bloom. He manages to use them as platforms, takes out another dart, and attacks him directly. The Lord of the River, Hand, says that what he used must be the tree that was hit by lightning, but it's just a simple toy that couldn't destroy his body. Anyu tells him that she put her heart into that toy, and after saying this, he activates the Thunder and Lightning Dart, a skill he completed after reaching the 10th star of the sunlight. Without sound, he can't believe what he is seeing. The surroundings of the river are clean, and it smells like a barbecue. Hanjul enjoys the refreshing wind after having killed the self-proclaimed god, but he worries about drawing attention because he believes it will end up like the last time. Although there is a possibility that the gods are neglecting the Lord of the River Han for the sake of their disciples' trials and growth, not for the common people. After searching for a while inside the beast, he manages to find a core. Although it's smaller than expected, it's the crystallization of his efforts and hopes to become a dragon from this beast, and it's called Without Size from Nothing. A person comes on stage and tries to capture Hanjule. This is the celestial king Noicha Sinsomen. He recalls the words of Yang Jijio, who told him to act as if nothing were happening since the immortals would only act when humans were in serious trouble, as they like to follow their own will. He thinks to himself that the fact that this character appeared so suddenly means they were considering the moment to quickly kill the Sea Dragon King. He tries to intervene to save Hanjing, but instead of helping her, the Celestial King scolds her for bringing a guy who trained for only a year and is not even a master for a mission like this. He tells her that even if he possesses the wood construction method, it's rare for a man without a master who has trained only a year to use a technique good enough to kill the Lord of the River Han, which makes him doubt his identity. He tells her that if she opens her mouth, she will only bring shame to her master. On his part, Han Lul laughs at those words. Noicha asks him if he has lost his fear, but he tells him why he should have it if he hasn't done anything wrong. He knows that Noicha doubts him because he thinks he may have an irregular physique, but this is the second time someone has thought the same thing, and he already verified it with the application. Furthermore, he tells him that 3 minutes have passed since the fish died, and they appeared out of nowhere just as he killed it. It seems they were watching him. Noicha is careful, as they appeared as soon as he killed it. They probably thought that if they finished off this fish, they could gain the public's favor. But since the stage they would use to elevate their disciple Noicha was ruined, they arrived. He can't tolerate what he's hearing, and he unleashes a significant amount of power, but he is amazed to see that Hanjule is fine after his attack. The latter raises his sword towards him. On his part, Noicha asks if he knows what it means, and a terrible power emerges from his body. He asks him for his final words, and Hanju tells him that he won't die, so there's no point in saying them because Noicha won't be able to kill him. On his neutral side, he tells her that she is too arrogant, concentrates power in the palm of her hand, and then hurls it at him. Han Lul prepares to take the blow head-on, and the other people present are very surprised to see that someone is protecting him. It turns out to be the elderly Pum Pek, the guardian of Miss Yunwa's garden, who claims to bring a request from her. He apologizes for interfering in her display of strength, but believes it was unjustified. Naucha asks if Miss wants to take him away to vent her anger over the death of her bird a year ago. Pumpek says that now he knows he is even stupid and will not avoid the fight, but both their reputations will be affected, and if there is no justification, she shouldn't mess with an elder. As he leaves, Naucha wonders why Miss Jumbo would call an elder to save Hanjul. The latter walks with him and asks if he knew he would appear, and that's why he was so brazen. Hanji seems not to know anything, and Pumbek gives him advice, thinking he is outstanding, but unknown arrogance leads to destruction. He tells him he will keep it in mind as his words echo in his mind. He recalls the incident from a year ago. His intentions were good, but not in the eyes of everyone. So he prepared himself more and more not to go through that again and not be treated like a fool. After this, we hear some comments about the person who will be Miss Hanjul, known as the Lady of Agriculture. The majority of elixirs are collected by her, and she is involved in their sale and production. Miss Jumbo owns an enormous garden, not an ordinary one. Carefully selected elixirs grow there. The history of the gardens might be considered a rumor, but after seeing solid evidence, Hanjul decided to create a plan to attract her attention and reap huge benefits. One of Yumbo's subordinates confirms her name and asks about what she holds in her hand, the seeds of purgatory, which become valuable when they sprout. They were discovered while taking action against the black market to find out who the seller was and punish them. Hanjul immediately kneels down, asking for forgiveness for his sin, saying he did it because he is very poor and had no other option. He reminds them he's doing it for the benefits. Miss Jumbo asks him to lift his head and tells him the punishment for killing her pet is not light. Still, she wants to show him mercy again. She asks if he wants to work with her in the garden and discusses this. Apparently, it's an excellent personal garden, and she thought that with the skills he showed with the purgatory buds and his ability to cultivate aquatic plants to purify poison, he could apply his knowledge in the garden. Hanju thanks her for observing him and attributes it to his technique of the wind of sunlight, with which ordinary plants would take only 2 days to bear fruit. No matter how much time and effort he dedicated, they never grew beyond a sprout. She says it's because his training is not good enough, but he's bolder than he seems, even trying to negotiate with her. Hanjul tries to say something, but she assures him there's no problem. She will help him with some elixirs from her garden and provide the necessary tools to progress. Additionally, she will guide him in his enlightenment. He thanks her for everything, and apparently his plan was successful. He leaves. John calls a girl named Hachempi, known as the Flower of Life, and asks her opinion of Miss Jumbo. She finds it suspicious. She was too helpful. He killed her pet, and even the Lord of the Han River. Han must have an extraordinary brain or be a psychopath with a bad temper who has gone beyond his limits. With this in mind, Jumbo asks her to keep an eye on him, assuring her that she will only let him manage the gardens. Even if he has bad intentions, he won't be able to take any seeds from there, and if he does, she will use him as fertilizer. Meanwhile, Hyecheonvi thinks to herself that she is working with Yumbo just for the peaches of immortality, as she dislikes her. However, she still hasn't managed to make them bloom in the city streets. Hanjul walks calmly, remembering the person behind Yumbo and guessing they must be around 300 years old, while Miss Jumbo is over 400. After achieving 10 stars in the solar wind in just a year, he can roughly determine others' abilities, though not precisely. According to his research, the age difference does not affect the level, as Noicha was 600 years old and some 400 years old, and they were on an equal footing. After checking his phone and measuring his level again, we learn that he deliberately showed false statistics to Sin Sonido. After learning all the solar wind techniques, he needs to make more effort. He goes straight to a tree and inserts the core of the Han River Lord into the ground. After this, we see him cultivating for a while, and upon waking up, he notices a strong smell of peach. The tree in front of him has served him well for cultivation, increasing the power of his breath. A week ago, it bloomed and bore fruit. Although still small, it looks mature enough. When he is about to pick it, someone tells him that it's a careless act. It seems to be a brown bear. He asks who he is. The bear introduces himself as Gwanak, the god of this mountain. Here they comment that after the Heaven's Gate was opened, the spirits began to show their existence, and the owner of this mountain was a quite unfortunate spirit. Hundreds of years ago, when the capital moved to Hanjiang, the officials believed that the mountain's fire energy would have an adverse effect and added water energy by digging a pond in the south. As a result, Wanak's energy weakened constantly, and his colossal size also decreased. Hanju tells him that he has been practicing for a year in this place and believed he could see him soon. Wanak says that he didn't want to disturb him. Hanjule wonders what he means when he's about to eat the fruit. Wanak worries that what he's about to do is a reckless act. Anyu asks if he's referring to picking the peaches, and he says yes. The energy of the tree concentrates in the fruit, and if someone picks it, its protection won't work, so things could become dangerous and attract the wrong people. Guanaka also tells him that just like he found out late or soon, someone else will discover the existence of the tree. Suddenly the clouds start to darken. Iguanak says that they have probably come to look for the fruit, and apparently, the person searching for it is called Choyol, who practices fire techniques. Huanak tells him that the human body couldn't handle all the medicinal effects of the fruit, but he is different, so he should give it to him to regain his spirit and protect him in the tree. On his part, Hanju says sorry and swallows the fruit. Huanak can't believe what's happening and recalls the Monkey King and Dawn, wondering what will happen. Hanjul tries to absorb the power of the fruit, but feels nothing. Guanax wonders how this could happen. Apparently the fruit hasn't vanished within the body. He feels a warmth coming from him, though not violent, but warm and gentle. Guanax resigns himself, and even says that the least powerful fruit takes 3,000 years to mature, so perhaps it won't have any effect. Hanji tells him that he's in trouble, and he can't even help, but Guanax says that even if he wanted to, he doesn't have the strength. Hanju throws something at him, and he gets angry. When he checks it, he realizes it's a seed from the purgatory plant, and gets quite nervous, but then puts on a gentle face and asks if he's giving it to him. Hanju gives him some more seeds, and asks if it's possible for him to recover to some extent, but he tells him that from now on, he can sell oysters, which confuses both the protagonist and myself. Honestly, I don't know what he meant by that. Wanak tells him that he can't regain his energy with just 3 herbs from the purgatory. Instead of talking, he should deal with the person looking for him. Anyu opens a map function to show how close their enemy is. Guanak asks if he intends to fight, and he says that if he doesn't, they will take the tree. Guanak can't believe what he's hearing and thinks that with the protagonist's level, he would surely be defeated. So he doesn't know what's going through his head. A person arrives where they are, and this is young Jijio. Hanju asks if he's Nucha's disciple and if he ordered him to find him. Yang says yes and takes out a yoban to face him. On his part, Wanak says that thing is incredible, and he hasn't seen it for over 300 years. It's made with the tail of a 9-tailed fox, and is a relic that became a treasure. Hanju tells Yang that even though his master is the celestial king, Seoul is full of people. So why should he create a fuss? Jean tells him that it doesn't matter what tricks he uses or how loudly he shouts, nothing will happen with the barrier that has been set up. Wanak says that this barrier is known as the Swanvu barrier, and has an unusual energy. It's a treasure that contains the power of the 4 gods. Yang gets angry with Guanaj's constant interference and tightly grasps the Giovan, preparing to fight. Hanjul sees the power of that treasure for the first time, which seems to be a very good quality, and remembers that when Sinsoman didn't come to see it, the energy spread throughout the mountain and reduced his abilities. He uses the tree-breathing first stance, Deforestation Lie XD. He uses the first fortress breathing and recovers all the energy he has shared. Yang shakes the Giovan, and many beasts come out of it. Both attacks meet, but Hanju's power is greater. Wanak can't believe that a human being is completely united with nature and wonders if such a technique is possible. Hanju takes it and wonders how powerful it is when suddenly a huge attack hits him from behind, impacting him. It seems to be the fire Taoist, who quickly runs up to Yang, but he couldn't do much as he seems to have lost his sanity. With this in mind, he thinks that since the disciple of the Celestial King has become like this in his realm, he wouldn't be able to escape no matter how prestigious his family is. He wouldn't be anything before him. On his part, Yan comes out of the fire and says that everything was in self-defense, and since he attacked him, it will be the same. The Taoist tells him that he should have killed him a year ago, but now that they are at this point, he will make his whole body in this battle. He is at a disadvantage due to the fire element and tries to endure as much as he can, but it is quite difficult to counter such a devastating element, and his compatibility in battle with it is null. Wanakal advises using the Giovan to counteract it, and the Taoist attacks him. After thinking for a moment, Hong prepares to try it. Multiple beasts come out, hitting the Taoist, but he can't believe the level of damage caused. A large part of the mountains has been devastated. When he's about to leave, the Taoist attacks him from behind. Both are in a critical state. Hanjil thinks to himself that perhaps the Taoist survived because he's a scholar who has come quite far. The latter delivers the final blow and walks towards him to take him away. Zhang, lying on the ground, wonders if he will die. But something happens. The pain in his body disappears, and the ability of the immortal Peach is activated after. If rigorously analyzed, here they talk about the Monkey King, who obtained a magnificent skin and was unaffected by the various shields of the Celestial Army. He endured the Celestial Palo Guero for 49 days despite the pressure from a god. His skin resisted for 500 years. On the other hand, Gon acquired the cells of the peach because he wanted a worthy life after death. And not even the most brutal witchcraft used by the messengers of the underworld could kill him. Although, in the end, he gave up his regeneration ability. Returning to the present, now we see the new ability they unlocked, the Immortal Peach. This allows him to use regeneration and optimize its properties, obtaining an organ that handles various metabolic processes, including detoxification. The liver. It was filled with a cold water energy. The Taoist wonders how he can possess water energy and asks how that is possible. Hanjul tells him that he doesn't know how it happened, and without further ado, they prepare to fight. With a single yoga shake, the Taoist is completely defeated. Anyu wakes up, and Hwanak asks what happened in this place, as there's a lot of water energy. As Anyu regains his senses, he realizes what's happening. Apparently, with just one of his attacks, he destroyed a large part of the terrain, finishing off his enemy. After a while, he goes to check his enemy's belongings and tries to find the flag that controls the barrier. After searching for a while, he finds what appears to be a hidden bag, a bag designed to store both large and small items. This makes him wonder if Yang Jijio already has one. After telling him this, he says that there's no time and someone should be coming, so he must make a quick move. Hanju carefully thinks about what to do and decides to carry the Taoist to a certain place. Hwanak asks what he's thinking, since if they reach this point, they might find the tree. He tells him to give him a minute, and concentrating power in his hands, channels it into the ground using the wind blow with Adotropina defoliation, wrapping the Taoist's body in leaves and absorbing him, making a new tree bloom. He tells Hwanak that fortunately, it's not too late, and they manage to camouflage everything. Some people come to see, but they turn back when they notice that there was nothing. Hwanak says that if that Taoist had not been a wise person of the fire nature, he could have produced new fruits. Hanjule says that since they're talking about fruits, the peach has a special medicinal effect and asks how it's possible. Hwanak tells him it's a very rare treasure, and few people know about it. He didn't see any change in him. He doesn't know if it's because the fruit hadn't matured or had no effects. While Hanjule thinks to himself that this effect changes according to the size of the fruit, or the time, and even if he increases its power through the liver, his water energy will increase. So he would like to know what would happen if he ate an older fruit. After a while, Hwanak tells him to take a look. Hanju looks closely and asks if it's possible for him to leave the mountain. Hwanak explains that he can share his alter ego, leaving his main body and traveling with him in a somewhat reduced form. However, to maintain this, it requires some power. Now that he's made contact with him, he can see the world through his eyes and practically begs him not to leave him. Hanji tells him it's okay, but in return, he must give him whatever he can. He hands him a kind of garrote and tells him that it's been around for a long time. On the Korean peninsula, there was a presence that appeared throughout East Asia, a fantastic race with intellectual capacity, a goblin, as well as being excellent in basic physical skills. They were born with luck, and their nature was more than excellent. They possessed a special tool that made their abilities even more special, known as the Goblin's Garrote. With his new acquisition, he asks if he can use it since he read somewhere that only the owner can do so. Hwanak tells him it's true, but it's such an important treasure that the goblin wouldn't change it as it can't be made twice. Losing the garrote meant the owner losing half of his strength. With this object, he can make its owner do anything, but Hanyu tells him that if that means he doesn't know who the owner is. Hwanak says he found it by accident, while Hanji thinks to himself that, anyway, he didn't expect much, and he tells him he likes it, which makes the little bear happy. With this finished, he says they are now going to work as gardeners. After collecting Yang Jijio's belongings, we switch to another scene and learn that the G22 summit will be held in Seoul. The government made special arrangements to welcome all the top officials of the state. As this is announced, Han Jing is in a taxi. The driver tells him that the meeting will be held at the Tower of Babel. In ancient times, humans built it to reach the sky, turning it into an unprecedented great tower. It existed before the gates of heaven were closed, and is about to be rebuilt as a project to unify languages. There would be many advantages, but there would also be enormous consequences. While they're in the car, something seems to happen outside. There's a person in front of them, and Han Lul wonders if it's a monster. However, it turns out to be Miss Hakenville, who asks him to get out of the car. She was asked to act as his assistant for a while. Whether she walks on a tightrope or gains profits, it won't be easy to coexist with her. If her name gets entangled in his affairs, she'll make him pay for it. He tells her he'll be careful, and she calms down. Gwanak, now disguised, tells him that the girl must be going through a difficult time. He asks if he knows her, and he says just a little. He asks about her weakness, and he says it's handsome men, which surprises him a bit. Gwanak comments that a long time ago, the famous architect of Yiyo Mondorian Island had a son named Mongoxion, who was a very handsome man. Hachionvi, who was an ordinary girl at that time, happened to see him bathing, and that's when her power awakened. Even though the gates of heaven were closed, Hanju asks if he's lying, and he says it's impossible. He heard that sometimes children awaken when their body and mind are shocked. They were taken out of the human world by the ancestors and raised by great sects. Hakionvi came from an important family, and Dorian Boxion accepted her. She courted him. However, Boxio saw her as a young and ignorant person full of anger, causing big problems with conquest. The border of Yiyo Island, saying that this is how it feels to pluck a flower, shake the sky, and sweep the whole world. That's why they called her the Flower of Extinction, transformed into a supreme lord. She formally visited Dory's house, but he and his father, afraid of her judgment, made a plan to get rid of her when she was preparing for the dreamed wedding with a happy future. The Monterreo family planned not to attend the wedding day. Instead, they sent many assassins to besiege her. The beloved one she had waited for so long turned out to be the weapons of her enemies. She was furious and let out all she had inside. The fight of that day was recorded as a great battle that shook the whole island. But in the end, she was the one who suffered defeat, betrayed by the love of her life. Wanacle comments that many approached seeking her talent, and rumors say they sent priests who looked very good to tempt her, but none of them returned with intact limbs. If they hadn't intervened, she might have been treated as a public enemy, even on the Korean peninsula. He asks if he doesn't feel relieved not to be able to influence someone like her. Hanjul asks why, and he says that obviously his appearance is average, which makes him want to send him back to the mountain again. After a long journey, they arrive at a temple. Haechan explains that there are 6 gardens in the pavilion, each numbered starting with the kindergarten, and the last one is where he will stay. Hanjul wonders if this place is the lowest, and he thinks that anyway, they wouldn't give him precious materials from the beginning. However, upon seeing it, he notices that it is just a desert with 2 suns, and wonders why it is so messy. Haechan tells him that each door has a different time and space in another part of the world, and from now on, he will be the owner of this place. He must take care of the crops and protect it from the creatures of the other world. Hanji asks about the previous owner, and she tells him that this place has been closed since the death of the previous owner 100 years ago, which makes him reflect a little. As time passes, powerful people increase, and the demand for medicines does too, which is probably why this garden was opened again. He won't work without pay. When the harvest season comes, there will be many things given to him, and with that, he prepares to leave. But his phone falls, and he manages to see a picture of some beautiful people, which makes him wonder if Gwanak's story is true. In a moment of nervousness, he tells her that he respects her. We see how he seems to be waking up and sees Gwanak, who tells him that about an hour has passed since he was knocked out. Hanju asks what happened, and he tells him that it was a clean blow that was executed without even using his power. He shows him the quality of the seeds they were given, while he looks at how tidy the place was. As if he shows his abilities, he is sure they will tell him to cultivate more valuable plants like peaches or something with much more power. He has to use this garden to become stronger than he is now, not to suffer in a world where the rebel immortals ravage everything, to protect not only himself but his family too, and wonders what he should do with this disaster. Checking his sword, he notices that it's burned, and remembers the tough battles they went through, so he buries it while saying that he worked hard and concentrates his power. Apparently, he can read the thoughts of plants and restores her as a tree. He also makes some kind of fence while terrified Gwanak thinks that it's amazing that he did all of it in an instant. Hanjul, on the other hand, grows some individuals on the ground using the execution of the winds of the sunlight and the art of cultivation singing. He summons some tree men and gives them orders to improve the terrain. Wanak says that it's incredible because he can handle the spirit of a tree, and it's a skill that even high-ranking scholars can't easily master. Hanju says he needs to rest a little as he ran out of energy, and they arrive at the hut. He enters and says it's bigger than he thought. Gwanak tells him that the previous owner of the garden was named Gummijin, and it's written in a book. Hanjule takes a position to recover his energy, and after doing it for a while he feels something. Gwanak asks what's wrong, and he says he's not sure, but he definitely felt the heartbeat of a plant. And upon careful observation, he realizes it's on the floor. So using the seeds, he makes a pickaxe and begins to dig. After doing it for some time, they find a barrier. Wanak tells him it's a blood barrier and holds a deep grudge. Hanjule thinks to himself that the heartbeats come from there, and by using the pickaxe to break it, they find a hidden room in which they find several things, including a book that tells the story of Parka Iji, the sixth gardener, who is nicknamed Gumming. It tells the truth about Miss Jungwa and all the atrocities she committed. One day, after returning home and saying goodbye to his friends, he accidentally entered and was possessed by a ghost. At that moment, when he couldn't do anything, a scholar who was passing by drove the ghost away. He thanked him for his gesture, but the scholar told him that those ghosts had stuck to him, and if he stayed like that, he would be pursued by criminals or haunted by more ghosts. So they should leave this place before a great disaster happened. He would take him to a place where he would be at peace, and that's how he got to know Miss Yunhua's pavilion. They told him that if he cultivated and dedicated himself to spiritual practice, he could become a being who transcended the world. For him, becoming a student was like collecting stars from the sky. As he didn't progress so fast, he had to do various tasks and gradually weakened. He thought it was inevitable, and he couldn't continue growing until, when he was about 30 years old, he met a boy who had gone through circumstances quite similar to his. But they were more shocking. He was also possessed by a ghost, but apparently it was the scholar who planted it in him, so he already knew why he was in this place. He was just a piece that could be acquired and replaced. After learning the whole story, he couldn't live as a servant. Instead, he bowed and asked those who had learned the earth element to teach him. His body, which had no strength, aged, and due to ridicule, he got the nickname Gumming, an aged figure from forced labor. When this happened, he thought it was his end. But then a miracle happened. Miss Jungwa rewarded him for all his sacrifices, granting him the position of the Lord of the Sixth Garden and the martial art of the Earth Dragon, which had been secretly passed down for generations. How could he not be excited? He pledged to fulfill his mission until the day of his death, and from that moment on, that Earth martial art increased his energy day by day, reaching the point where he could become a mystic immortal, corresponding to the 4th rank. But compared to the level he reached, his body became weak, and only then did he realize the horrible secret of the martial arts, the effect of boosting the energy given by the Earth Dragon. Martial arts is excellent, but it's not his energy itself. He became just a structure to be absorbed by the medicinal plants of the garden. Essentially, he became fertilizer. Hanjuli apparently saw on TV that they were talking about this. Wanak tells him it's something normal. It is a method they often use to keep their things, while Hanji thinks with fury in his eyes, and he could also become someone like Gumming, but he is not willing to accept it. He keeps reading, and the ancient owner of the garden says that if he has the ability to pierce the barrier, there is no doubt he is a talented person. For those who might be in the same situation as him, he leaves behind a treasure, a ginseng with a face that was cultivated by people. On the other side of the sea, it is called mandrake, and there is another object of which there is no record. Hanjuel thinks it is something strange. The heartbeat he felt before did not come from a seed but from that object. So, he concentrates his power on it, but upon reacting to it, he throws it back. He thinks to himself that the object refuses to grow as if the shape it has is absolutely necessary. So he wonders what it is. After having it for a while, he comes to the conclusion that it must be related to a sword. On the other hand, we see Miss Yunhua, who is attending a very important visitor. This is the lady of the ISO Konami Palace, according to who tells her that the matter bringing her to this place is very important. She heard that she possesses the lost treasure of the palace, which disappeared about 100 years ago due to an accident. so she wants it back. The hilt of the seventh sword, which was known as the Sword of the Seven Arms, a rather peculiar object. In Beisha, where the sword was made, it was originally a country that could not establish itself because, of the three kingdoms, they were the only ones lacking the power to establish a country. While the first was established by Pak Joz, who had an irregular physique, and the second by Gur, the sacred son of Yunhua, who possessed the blessing of the spirits and ancestors of the Korean peninsula, King Hongo established Beiche without any power or background. He awakened his earthly physique, obtained the golden element, formed a martial art, and learned to control energy by himself, becoming an uncommon genius. Beiche was at its peak, but over time, due to the low power of its successors, its decline was inevitable, and even its traces disappeared over time. Only one remained, King John Chogo. The seven-armed sword was a rare masterpiece made by that sacred prince. Objects that could reach the ranks of great sacred treasures were created and stored in an archipelago. Back to the present, Jumbo asks Hanju, "Wasn't the hilt originally not together with the blade?" She tells him that she already knows that and tells him a story. In the past, there was a record that when King Unsho was about to give the sword to the Celestial King, the messenger died in a disaster. The ship was found, the blade was recovered, and it was delivered to its country of origin, but not the hilt. Yumbo tells her that, according to her thinking, the sword actually has a hilt, but it is something strange. Apparently, she realized this only recently and asks why she wants to interrogate her about its whereabouts without any judgment. He says he didn't come to ask pointless questions. On behalf of the sanctuary, he is there to propose a celestial fight in 6 months. Jumbo asks about the conditions, and she tells him they will wager the blade of the seven-armed sword. If he wins, she will allow him to take one thing from her possession. If the hilt of the sword is at this place, she promises to take it only and assures him that everything will be confidential. Jumbo accepts, but adds one condition. 6 months have passed, and people talk about broadcasting the celestial fight live. Some wonder why, while others simply enjoy it. We see a person apparently heading to the sixth garden and telling his subordinates not to cause trouble to the owner of this place. As they enter the garden, they are amazed to see that the whole place has blossomed beautifully. It is no longer the desolate place it was before. Hanju welcomes them while eating a bit. One of the people says it is rude to receive them while eating, considering that their boss is Lord Leon, who is in the celestial immortal rank. Hanju dismisses their concern, introducing himself with a handshake. Lee responds to the greeting and tells him that he is there to take the report on the garden's progress. He shows the progress and tells his companions that he is not obligated to be addressed as Lord, since he is also a celestial immortal, which surprises them. Lee talks about the celestial fight. From what he heard, it spans from the celestial rank to the immortal rank, and there will be 2 players for each rank. He says he didn't know this event was scheduled, and asks if he will be participating, to which he responds affirmatively. It is said that during the Korean War, he awakened his spirituality due to the shock of losing his family. Later, in the pavilion, although he could have been looked down upon as Guminin, he possessed the skills to be someone great. Hanjul thinks to himself that he can't trust most of the immortals, but this one seems quite amusing, as he even apologized for his subordinate's behavior. Lee tells him that the best celestial immortal is Gochagul, who is about to become a pure immortal and is related to Miss Yunhwa's son. So, he only got lucky. We change the scene, and now we see Miss Yunhwa talking about the fight. She says that the sanctuary accepted her proposal. The mortals support them because they killed a few creatures. If they play an active role in the matter of national pride, they can receive the same worship and praise as Sinsomin, who only killed one creature. A maid comes in and she asks, "What's the matter?" besides asking about the well-being of the owner of the sixth garden. The maid says something which angers Gokagul, who says they are defaming him. A person named Dice says that it wouldn't be bad to deal with him. There's a rumor that he's deliberately staying in the celestial rank because he's afraid to compete with the pure immortals in the celestial fight, so he should only face him.